But, oh, it's cut off on the bottom, but there's really only one, so you don't need to worry. So I'd rather you look at me than the slide. It's really a pleasure to be given the opportunity to speak. That was a fantastic talk, and that we just heard. And I think in some sense you can consider me, I don't know, an example or a little mini case study of some of the things that were being spoken about, in the sense that I just went through the tenure process in the US, and I mean, so that process was successful, so I'm not coming at this from a bitter standpoint, but I think I've experienced many of the pressures that we all have to accept military funding, and it's very much my view that these issues are systemic and not that it can't only be up to the individual to refuse or to make decisions. And in that way, I differ somewhat from Ben Kuipers, who, I don't know, I assume many of you are familiar with his statement on his non-acceptance of military funding as being a personal testimony of his, a clear and visible testimony, and it's one that I very much respect. But I think that something more is called for if one wants to be an advocate, because these are, I mean, again, these are pressures that, well, the system that is currently in place encourages one very much to accept military funding and to work on certain sorts of projects. And I think that's what needs to be addressed. So I guess what I'll talk about, and I forgot to set my timer, but really I'm not going to take more than 10 minutes to do this, and we can get to the panel. I guess I want to say three things. First, I want to provide a minor critique of the proposed ban on fully autonomous weaponized robots, not the fact of the ban itself, but maybe the statement of the arguments that are used in support of that ban. I then want to give an example of an activity in which I've become involved that has nothing to do with weaponized robots or military robots per se, but it's an example of an activity that I mean is personally very important to me, and that it's an activity that's completely discouraged by the current structure, both of tenure and of funding and research and all of that. And then the third thing I want to do is, I don't know, maybe pose a couple of questions about that structure and how we might change it, and many of those I think were already foreshadowed very well by Dr. Sparrow. So here's my one slide. So first, I think one of the, so I get when I talk about when I respond to the proposed ban on fully autonomous weaponized robots, what I'm really responding to are the reports from Human Rights Watch and these sorts of things, many of which were referred to by the website for this workshop. And I think one interesting thing about them is many of the arguments are framed in terms of the, and I think these have been reiterated today very well in some of the talks this morning, that many of the arguments are framed in terms of existing technical challenges, or technical challenges that we cannot, that must be overcome in order for fully autonomous weaponized robots to be ethical, and that we cannot possibly imagine be overcome in the near term. So these notions of distinction and proportionality, the idea that that in order for a weaponized robot to perform as well as a human, that's either simply impossible, or that some kind of strong AI or some human level intelligence needs to be there in order to make decisions about distinction and proportionality. And many of these arguments go on to say that these things are either not currently available, can't ever be available, or at least can't be available in the next 25, 50 years, something like this. And I find that very problematic for two reasons.